Hello and welcome to episode 4, themed An Audience of One. This week's episode actually follows on from last week's video, which was all about overcoming loneliness. You know, the truth is that on this road that we are walking here on earth, we will be experiencing loneliness in our journeys. If you have made the decision to put God first in your life, you are going to offend people with your outlook and your point of view. And we should actually become okay with that feeling of being out of place and not be surprised by it. Why? Because as believers, we are in this world. We are not of this world. John 15 verse 19 states, "If you belong to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world. That is why the world hates you." So the world's standards and norms and values are different to God's norms and standards and values. And essentially, we are therefore foreigners and just passing through, as the scripture also reminds us in 1 Chronicles 29 verse 15. We are here for only a moment, visitors and strangers in the land, as our ancestors were before us. Our days on earth are like a passing shadow, gone so soon without a trace. So it actually makes sense that there will be times and seasons in our lives that we will feel completely out of place, as if we don't fit in, because the reality is we are not supposed to. But this feeling of being out of place can be very tough when we experience it in situations or with people that are very close to us. And then the question is, how do we handle these situations? For instance, it can be very tough and very lonely when your spouse or your significant other does not understand your relationship with Jesus, that part of your life that is so vital to you as a person. Maybe you are a believer and the only believer in your family, and it can then also be a very lonely experience, because a family is meant to be people where we feel the safest with and with whom we are the most comfortable with. But often that is not the case. We can also feel lonely in the workplace where we are spending a big chunk of our day. And if this environment is bad or toxic, it can really affect us. Or perhaps you find yourself amongst a circle of friends where you feel out of place due to certain activities that they engage with, but you don't know how to exit the situation or the friendship. And the result is that you feel lonely and trapped. We can draw so much strength and wisdom from characters from the Bible who also experienced loneliness in their lives. And we can really learn from them on how they reacted to those situations. King David, for instance, was married to Michal. She was Saul's daughter. And Michal also did not understand David's devotion and love for God. We see this especially in 2 Samuel 6 verse 16, where David was leaping and dancing before the ark, and Michal looked down from a window in the palace, and she despised him in her heart. We read further in the chapter that she spoke with contempt about David's dancing, which she felt was vulgar behavior for him as the king of Israel. Yet David responded that he was willing to look even more foolish and humiliate himself even further if necessary for God. David was dancing ultimately to please God. And due to Michal's reaction to David's dancing, we read that she had no children till the day of her death. Joseph's life is also a prime example of someone that grew up very lonely, although he was part of a big family. At the age of only 17 years, he was sold into slavery by his brothers who were jealous of him because he was their father's favorite son. And you know, Joseph would only see his brothers again 20 years later when they came to Egypt to look for food. And 13 of those 20 years he spent as a slave or in prison in a foreign country. And through all those lonely years, Joseph remained faithful and devoted to God, and was used powerfully by God in the process. He also did not allow offense or unforgiveness to take root in his heart against his brothers, but he chose to forgive them, and he helped them when he was confronted with them many years later. Daniel is also another example of someone that experienced loneliness and extreme persecution in a work environment because of his devotion to God. Daniel was good at his job and King Darius trusted him, but his co-workers were jealous of Daniel and they were always looking for ways to get him into trouble. And you know the story. They tricked the king into making a law about worshipping only the king for 30 days. But Daniel didn't even have a debate or argued about it. He simply went right back to doing what he always did, which was praying to God 3 times a day and giving him thanks. And because of this action, he was sentenced to the lion's den. But Daniel knew God and he was not shaken by his circumstances at all. He trusted God and was not harmed at all when he was thrown into the lion's den. So what did David and Joseph and Daniel all had in common? They worked and danced and lived for an audience of one. They were not impacted or affected by people the closest to them that persecuted them because of their relationship with God. The loneliness that they experienced actually resulted in drawing them even closer in their relationship with God. So perhaps you are also in a season of loneliness right now, where you may be feeling out of place or not understood by the people the closest to you. Be encouraged by these figures of faith from the Bible. You know, without question, God uses times in our lives where we are isolated from others to draw us closer to Him, to teach us something about His character, so that we can gain strength for our journeys or just to get to know Him better and to enjoy Him. So in this time, allow Him to minister to you, because chances are He's also busy depositing something inside of you for your future. So trust Him in this process. If you are interested to hear more, click on the link to enroll for the free short online course, Becoming an Overcomer. In this Kingdom course, you will receive practical tips on overcoming negativity, overcoming worries and fears, overcoming rejection, and how to stand strong in the face of difficulties. Thank you for watching.